let's jump into this and start with the update in Niger. I really want you quickly to pass through them. There are like 2-3 things. For example, there is the acting Secretary of State, of the US, who is Victoria Nuland, was in Niger, and she was rejected by the coup leader. So she did not meet the coup leaders, but their story in the mainstream ran out with saying, oh, like as if she met with the civil society organization or the Nigerians, something like that. That's what they covered. And then, so what is she doing there?
Actually, this event, the next event as an update, happened whereby Victoria Nuland, who is the acting Deputy Secretary of State of the United States, this woman went secretly into Niger. She secretly went into Niger, but because they had blocked the airspace in Niger, she was able to pass through Libya via the land. She was driven on land from Libya, and she went into Niger. But this woman, she's not new to us as Pan-Africanists. This is a very dangerous woman. Historically, she's worked with the NED, an organization, so-called NGO called NED, National Endowment for Democracy. It is not democracy, actually. If you want, you can call it National Endowment for Brutality, because that is what the United States is known for. This organization, she worked in it. She worked in the government of George Bush. She served under Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, who was a very murderous man, very unapologetically brutal. They killed a lot of people in Iraq and Afghanistan. We remember him during the regime of George W. Bush. He was the vice president. Victoria Nuland was an advisor, security advisor to this brutal man who killed a lot of people, 1 million people in Iraq. So this is the woman, the same woman that currently has been promoted to be Deputy Secretary of State. Now, that is not all. The killing, as if the killings in Iraq and Afghanistan were not enough, this woman also participated in the coup that happened in Ukraine, in overthrowing a democratically elected government in Ukraine in 2014. She was there. Even she was recorded. She was recorded on audio, exchanging information on how to overthrow the government in Ukraine and who to install. So this is the woman that they have sent to Africa to intervene. This is the woman President Biden, Joe Biden, has sent on behalf of the American people to intervene in the coup in Niger. So this should show you what is at stake. What is at stake is really huge in Niger, and every African needs to pay attention to this. This woman is brutal and very murderous. Of course, we remember very well that hundreds of people died during the Ukraine crisis in 2014, that there was a democratically elected president, and he was overthrown. They instigated a coup and chaos in the country. And this woman was at the center. She was at the center of instigating this coup that happened there. And so it is no surprise that now she has been sent to instigate another chaos in Niger. Reason why? It is because the Africans have been able to reign and apply their own internal systems to avoid the war. It is because the governors in Nigeria, for example, have been able to rein in on Tinubu. They have been able to prevail on Tinubu and tell him that it is not necessary. You cannot start a war. And of course, we saw South Africa also has been able to put its voice out there. We had Madame Naledi Pandor, who is the Minister of Foreign Relations, in South Africa, has been also able to put her voice out there and say that it's necessary to use diplomacy. It is not necessary for us to use war to be able to solve these problems. We can use diplomacy and solve these problems. So because the Americans and the Europeans are seeing that this strategy of using chaos is failing. Now they are trying to employ a different strategy now. They are trying to employ some chaotic situation. So we will come to that later. But this woman, this is the type of woman that has been sent to Africa to be able to carry out and fulfill the United States interests. So you can know and you can expect a lot of chaos within Niger, because that is what this woman carries. This woman is an angel of death and chaos. So I want Africans to be able to get information about this woman called Victoria Nuland. Now, on the other side also, we heard that when she came in Tunisia, she requested to meet the ousted leader, President Mohamed Bazoum, the former president, President Mohamed Bazoum. She first requested to meet the coup leader in Niger, and they failed, or they refused actually. They refused, they told her that she cannot meet him. And she put up another demand that she want to meet the former president, Mohamed Bazoum. And they refused to let her to meet him also. So all in all, they chased her away from Niger, and she was not able to see the people she wanted. And she went back to the United States, and she said that the people are very difficult, the coup leaders are very difficult, they are very difficult people. And it is simply because they know what they want. These people know what they want. It is not good to negotiate with an enemy. It is not a good thing to negotiate with the enemy who you know that has been oppressing you for a very long time. For a very long time, for the last 60 years, the United States has been here oppressing us and oppressing the people and exploiting the people. For the last 600 years.
Kwame, let me intervene just for us, for it to be clear. What do you mean by negotiating with the enemy? And if you can cite an example, that happened globally or specifically in Africa, and what it brought, the consequence of it.
Yes. So historically, what I wanted to mention there is that when you look at how the leaders of the coup in Niger approached this situation, that they refused to negotiate with Nuland. We have cases in history where leaders have, especially African leaders, have gone in to negotiate with the enemy, and it has been catastrophic. So actually, I want to laud the strategy which they have used, that they have refused to negotiate with the enemy. They have refused to talk to the enemy, because now they see organizations like African Union, ECOWAS, and United Nations as enemy. And it is clear, we know that, all of us know that, but it's because we have been accommodating it because of somehow feeling helpless. But when we go back to history, we see situations like starting with Haiti, that when Haiti was able to beat France and Britain and beat Spain, France was able to convince the leader of the movement, of the independence movement, who was Toussaint Louverture. They were able to convince him that he should come, and then we negotiate with France. And they grabbed him and they killed him. They killed, Toussaint Louverture. And that is how Dessalines took over. Now, when we come to South Africa, also we had a situation like this, that when President Mandela was in prison, and they took him and they started looking after him very well, and they started to bring him to negotiate on the table, we saw what happened. There was the neglect and the abandonment of the Freedom Charter in South Africa, the Freedom Charter, which was stating that we have to take back our land as Africans. So the Freedom Charter was abandoned, and what came later is compromise. Because whenever you speak to an enemy, you are likely to compromise. So I want to laud the leaders of the coup for the insistence that they would not negotiate with the enemy, because they have stood the ground. And I've been hearing, actually, even in some corners, that the leader, they attempted to bribe him with around $200 million, and he rejected it. He rejected it. So this should show you that Africans are not corrupt. They are not naturally corrupt. But there is certain circumstances that are currently existent on the continent that are forcing Africans to be looked at as corrupt. And when you have someone who is starving and they want to eat, and you put something in front of them, definitely they are likely to eat it. So there is certain forces which are existent on the continent that are painting Africa's image and the image of Africans as a people as corrupt. But this should be able to show you that this is not a corrupt leader. That these people, they know what they want, and what they want is to take back the resources of the continent. So that is an example. That is precisely the perfect example which I can give you in this situation when we talk of Tusa Lovacha, in Haiti, and then when we talk of President Nelson Mandela in South Africa, that there was compromise, that the land was not taken back. And now whenever you compromise, you let the enemy buy time, and then you postpone your struggle. Even the struggle could be even much more difficult if you start postponing the struggle. And it is very dangerous. This is a very dangerous situation. And when you look at places like China, where they embraced the struggle and fought all at once, they were able to liberate their place, their country, unify it, and now see where they are. But because the Africans have always had this sort of humanistic approach and they want to negotiate with the enemy, I'm not saying that it is inherently bad. It is because of our nature as Africans that we want to put things in order. We want to be fair. We have the desire to have fairness. But it has, in many cases, not produced anything good for us. So we have to learn from this and start putting our foot down as Africans. So I want to laud that once again, that they really did a good thing. They approached this situation, I think, very well by refusing to speak to some of these people, to any of these people who have even been condemning.